I kind of like that, but oh well.
All right. So, Steven Stamp, it's been an absolute blast doing the Hidden Highlight show. Adam Levy, and I got it right this time after,
You
the
did.
entire year of mispronouncing his name. I blame it on my nephew. His name is Levi, and it's
Yeah, but
spelled
you
the
said
same.
Levy, so that doesn't help you.
It doesn't. I know. I don't know why I want to call him Levy. I get that country song like stuck in my head, down the levee. Anyways. So, but it has been an absolute blast. I loved getting to sit and listen to you guys talk about it. I really love the different perspectives of what you guys looked at and kind of what you consider is like your key metric versus what his key metrics were. And interesting to see where the overlaps kind of were and how it was. For me, it was an absolute blast to be able to watch it and add the names to it and kind of go through. I'm sure for you guys, it must have been fun to kind of wrap up the playoffs.
It was a lot of fun. And just for anyone who's not familiar yet or isn't aware what we did, Adam and I went and picked a playoff all-star team. That's what we're talking about here. So to wrap up the postseason, we went through and just had a discussion. And we picked a goalie, 5 defenders or defense transition, and 5 forwards to make a full all-star roster. And it's funny because some of it was super easy. I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that Dane Smith and Josh Byrne are forwards on this team. We didn't spend much time talking about them, but you get into the 3, 4, 5 spots for that, and for defenders, it's always hard. But it was a lot of fun. And Adam and I have already talked about how we want to do a lot more of it next year. Just get on video together. So if you're game, we'd love to do some stuff on Blue Squatch and talk about our IL Indoor stuff. And little cross pollination would be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I definitely am game and I would love to do it. And I got to tell you, the most exciting thing for me was when you guys started and he threw out the Wagner because I have been telling anybody who listens to me that since they traded for him, he has been a hidden gem.
Mm-hmm.
They had a very solid defense and he was that part that really kind of made it from a solid to that above level kind of defense. And other than blocking the shots, I still don't understand why he spins around backwards and blocks shots.
I don't know. And I shouldn't laugh. It is kind of funny just because does seem such an odd thing to do. But I mean, that one that he took in the head was really alarming, right? And I mean, you're almost. I think you are better probably taking it in the face mask than in the side of the helmet for the most part, because I think the blow gets diffused more. But I mean, I talk about it. I'm not a big fan of the block shot. I don't like it as a statistic because I think it encourages it and kind of glorifies it, and I just think it's dangerous. Like the guys aren't wearing enough gear to be doing that.
Yeah, we were hockey players and fully covered, but our coach, he always told us, you stand facing the puck because that's where all your pads are. That's how it's designed. And you just
Yep.
kind of curl your toes a little bit and hope if it hits off the end of your skates that it doesn't hit that hard.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
But I
You have
mean,
shin
we've got,
pads.
yeah, shin guards, hockey pants,
Yeah.
yeah, full, yeah. I understand that a lot more, and I'm still not that guy that's going to lay out in front of it either. My goalie does that, and then what I do is turn around and make sure the rebound doesn't get picked up. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's hard to
Yeah.
argue with that though, because you look at Buffalo and they blocked a lot of shots, and it seems to work out pretty well for them.
I know. One thing I'd be curious if somebody would break down how many of the shots that are blocked would have gotten to pass the goalie, would have been on net, and that the goalie, if he was lined up for them. Now it's hard to say because they're generally trying to take lanes that the goalie isn't covering. That's how the whole system works. But I feel like a lot of the shots, like it's great that didn't get through the goalie, but the goalie probably would have stopped them anyway. And he's wearing the gear to stop them. He's not risking, you know, pretty serious contusions and I don't know. I
Well, when you talk about how valuable Wagner was to the defense, those
mhm,
two shots, which you would hope Dougie's going to make because of how far out they were when he
yeah,
jumps and takes it. But though, I mean, you'll give up those two shots any day to keep that guy on the floor.
100%, 100%. Yeah, well put.
Yeah.
So we picked these teams. We had some debates, and it was a lot of fun. We did it just after the playoffs ended. We're a little bit late. It's now summer, which is why I'm wearing a summer ready for summer shirt. But yeah, we just got a little bit delayed. You have had a lot going on, right?
We have been super busy. You had a little bit going on up there
Yep.
yourself ahead of time, but yeah, now our season kind of kicks into full swing, and we have basically spent the last 2 days basically building two systems. So now we have two complete systems. This is a much smaller audio mixer instead of that big blue monstrosity that I have. So there's the new one. It's only got 2 ports for like you and the other commentator to go in, the headphones you listen to. So we're definitely upgrading. I just got to figure out how I'm going to hook the wireless system up to that. I think I've got it figured out, but no, it's been super exciting, super busy, more work. I got to go up. I haven't seen you since I got to check out the ILA. What a treat that place is. That is wow.
Yeah. It's
It,
really something,
it
right? It's a special place.
and I mean, we picked the all-star team for this, but now I've got a question for you. This
Yes.
team, I think, is the only team if you take, and it depends on which side you put Dane Smith on, but I got to see my first Senior A game up in Six Nations.
Yeah.
Wow, they're going to be, that's an NLL all-star team. I did not,
Oh
I
yeah.
knew they were good, but I did not realize like the kind of talent, and they still didn't have some of their, Priolo wasn't there, Dane Smith wasn't there. That's why I
Yeah.
say it, even if you take this all-star team, it depends on which side those players are on to which team's going to
Mhm.
win. It's
Oh, for
crazy.
sure. For sure. I mean, Josh Byrne is a big factor. He's not playing in Six Nations, and that's a huge factor. But I mean, we'll let you see who the goaltender is for our All-Star team. But I mean, it would be a good matchup. And the interesting thing is getting back to the point where MSL teams are as good as any NLL team. And I think back when there were, you go back 10, 12 years, whatever point there were 13, 14, 15 teams before. The talent is more spread out. There's been a lot of talent coming in that since then, but there wasn't the depth on the teams that they had. Once you shrunk it down to a 9-team league, then those rosters were stacked. Like, it was hard to make those rosters. But when there were 13, 14 teams before, the MSL and WLA teams at the tops of the standings were generally better. I mean, we had this debate actually at ILINDOOR one year where who would win. Somebody, one of our American contributors said, "Wow, those Man Cup rosters look really good. Like, do you think the Man Cup champions? I think at the time it was actually Six Nations would, or it might have been Peterborough, it might have been before that, but so how do you think they do against the NLL champs?" And I remember thinking, well, I think the MSL team at that point, it was an MSL team, had won the Man Cup, and I was like, I think the Man Cup champs would win pretty handily, really. Now I'm sure it was in the Rochester run, and Rochester was won 3 straight championships, but also they were 7-9 one season and 8-8 the other. And you had, in the MSL, you had like Peterborough and Six Nations and Brooklyn, and it was just past the Brampton phase. But you had these teams that were so good and were winning a bunch of games. And then out west, you had a bit of a drier spell for the Western Lacrosse Association. They didn't win any Man Cups for quite a while. They took 2015, but other than that, that was about the first one they'd had since 2003 was the last time before that they'd won. So, or was it 2005? Sorry, 2005 Victoria won. But there were, some very good teams out there, but they weren't probably quite as deep, which is, why I guess the Eastern teams were winning all the time. But yeah, you definitely look up and down the lineup, and there are guys on the NLL Cup champions who just wouldn't have made the roster. There were guys on the NLL Cup champions who didn't make the rosters for Man Cup champions. So yeah, it didn't actually used to be that much of a debate, I don't think, at that point, because the talent was so concentrated. Now, I mean, with more teams in the NLL, it's maybe moving back that way a bit, but I just think the talent pool in the NLL is so much broader. There's been so many great players coming out. I know that's a bit of a concern for a lot of coaches moving forward, that there isn't the depth of players, just aren't as many players playing junior lacrosse, minor through junior in Canada. It's drying up a bit. It's a bit of a concern. I think that shortfall is going to be made up eventually, with hopefully the game rebounding in Canada, but also with American players. I mean, there are so many good American players now, and they're getting the box experience they need. So you've got guys like Eli Gobrecht and Tom Schreiber, I think, is an aberration. He's just a freak of nature wherever he's from, right? But you've got other players like Jack Hanna and so many guys that are really good and are coming on, and I think are gonna fill that gap and make the NLL teams have that real quality depth again.
Absolutely. It's about, as long as the sport continues to grow. I got a funny story for you when we get off the air about
Okay.
that whole debate. I kind of had that up in Canada as well, and I'll tell you mine off air. But back to these teams, I was not surprised by anybody. The only one I guess I would say is I
Gonna
don't
give
want
a
to give.
spoiler?
No, I'm not going to give it a spoiler,
Okay.
but I will say the San Diego pick. Until the stats were read, I was on your side of the argument. I'm going to leave it at that. And now
Okay.
after the stats, I think the decision made was 100% correct. But it was one of those things that was the only real surprise to me. The rest of it was kind of I definitely see that. I definitely see that. Made
And that one
perfect
was a coin
sense.
toss for me anyway. So
Yeah, but it was a little bit less of a coin toss after listening to him
yeah.
talk. But this was only supposed to be the warm up. We've already gone 10 minutes because that's what we do. But it's been absolutely awesome, and I really do appreciate all the time you've taken. And I can't wait. Maybe we'll get Adam on and we'll do this for the summer. We'll pick a
Yeah.
MSL, All Star team and put them up against this All Star team we just saw.
Let's do it. Pick an MSL All-Star team, a WLA All-Star team, and the NLL one, and have a little virtual tournament.
I love
That'd
it.
be pretty fun. And hey, I just want to say, I know you're always thanking me for my time, but you put way more time into this than I do because you have to go and edit everything, and I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. I always enjoy chatting with you and doing games with you, and I appreciate you coming up with this idea and just doing it and putting in all the time and effort every week. It's a blast, and I love doing it.
Yeah, I've learned a lot. Editing, I definitely think if you look at our first show compared to, a couple of the last ones, we've definitely made some strides. This one's a little iffy, but it's because we're so slamming, and we'll get back into it. But no, next year I've got a lot to look forward to. I really hope the three of us get together and maybe it becomes a three-person show where we just kind of, yeah. We won't give away anymore, but that's it. I'm going to say goodbye before we talk because I know after we shut this recording off, we're going to talk for another 10, 15 hour.
Right.
Who knows? But
All right. Thanks so much, man. It's always great.
absolutely. All right.
Okay, we are going to select an all NLL playoffs team. I am Steven Stamp. He is Adam Levy. Great to get together on the screen, Adam. And it's going to be interesting because we haven't talked about who these people are going to be. I think some of them are going to be pretty obvious. Some of them, who knows? We will start with maybe the most difficult position always to come up with all stars, and that's defense. And I'm going to let you propose someone first.
Well, for me, I love the numbers, as you know, but I'm also going to go with a guy. I had the pleasure of being at the NLL finals, both games this season, and John Wagner was unbelievable. So I'm just going to take him. I'll put him on the board right now. He became one of only four players ever. Now I know block shots only began tracking in 2002. 2022. But he only is the fourth player ever to have 5 points, five block shots, five caused turnovers, and 40 plus loose balls. But beyond that, he was all over the floor. He was physical. He really helped that Albany defense. Now, obviously, Buffalo found ways around him and the other defensemen, but he was really he was a dog out there. He was amazing, and I loved what he did. So I would definitely want to put him on that board.
I'm down with that. I think Wagner was great. I will. The one thing is I don't like block shots. I'll say it
Yeah.
right out front. Don't like it as a stat. Don't think they should be encouraged. I think it's dangerous, and I don't think people should be just stepping in front of shots. I think someone's going to get really hurt, and that worries me for the
Right.
player.
And Wagner almost did actually. He
Yeah,
took
he
a
got hit in the
shot.
helmet, right?
Yeah. And Wagner had other injuries to the legs. So, obviously I totally agree with you. You don't want to do something that's going to be dangerous, but he was even though he had injuries, he battled through them.
Yeah, and he was such a great addition at the trade deadline for a pick that's now going to be 14th overall in the NLL draft. And there was absolutely no one in this draft who was going to be the same value as a 29-year-old John Wagner over the next
100%.
several years. That was a great deal, which speaks to why Glenn Clark was named GM of the Year by the National Lacrosse League. And I'm not going to let too much loose, but definitely he was a contender for the ILINDOOR GM of the Year, which will be coming out shortly. So yeah, let's put Wagner in. Let's lock him down. I am going to now propose one, and I'm going to stick with Albany. And then obviously there's going to be a lot of guys from Albany and Buffalo, obviously a ton from Buffalo. But I'm going to stick with an Albany guy because I think Patrick Kastchuk was sensational in the playoffs throughout. There are a lot of guys who played well. I thought Mike Byrne played very well for Albany. Nick Tchaikovsky is always great. I thought, there are a bunch of guys. Zach Young was, as a rookie, unbelievably poised. But I just think Patrick Kastchuk did it all over the floor. His defense was great. He actually led them in caused turnovers, which I didn't realize until after I thought he was the guy I was leaning towards.
Mhm.
And his transition play, I mean, I thought John Abbott and Pat Gregoire did a nice job of pointing out in the broadcast how important transition was going to be for Albany, and Kastchuk getting the first goal in game two really got them off on the right foot. They ran into a juggernaut that is Buffalo right now, but
Mhm.
I've got Kastchuk. What do you think?
I love it a lot, and this is where, I think maybe he gets overlooked sometimes. And thankfully, we have a guy like Cooper Perkins with Lax Metrics, obviously a contributor to ILINDOOR as well. If you look at his numbers on there in defensive shot percentage, he's up at the top, in the league, especially when it comes to the total shots defended. He's also not afraid to scrap it up. Very physical guy, as you said. Can do so many different things all up and down the floor. I'm really impressed by him. And one of the things I noticed, and I know that Pat Gregoire and John Abbott highlighted this as well, is that even though Albany was a smaller defense and they're a younger defense, there were many times throughout both games, to be honest, where they looked like the big bad bullies and not Buffalo. And that takes a lot of courage and a lot of heart. And he is one of those leaders on that side. So I would totally agree with that.
Communication too. That's the thing that really struck me for Albany, is how good their communication was among the defense. They were like an amoeba, just all shifting, adjusting, and something would go here, so something would go here, and it was remarkable. Now, obviously, Buffalo found ways to score, but I mean, with some of the guys Buffalo has, that's going to happen.
Right.
So, let's snake. So I'll propose someone now, and so we've got what we should actually mention how we're doing this. We're picking an all-star team. We're going to have 5 forwards, 5 defenders, so a full line for each, and a goalie. So we're starting with the defenders. So we have 3 spots left because we're both all in on Wagner and Kastchuk, which means, and I think this is a good thing for any awards or all-star consideration, there are going to be some very, very good players that get left out. And I think that's really good. I think it means more if there are good players left out. I am going to go with one of the Bandits. And again, so many guys that you go with. I am going to say Ian McKay was a difference maker for them, start to finish, throughout the playoffs, in transition, you stay up and play offense. He's always really good. I thought he was even better than usual in the playoffs this year.
I could completely agree. A spark plug out there. Again, the way he moves up and down the floor, unbelievable. He is really, and I have written about this before, he's one of those guys that the Buffalo defense, when they're on, it's so good. But when you give the offense that opportunity to get things going, especially early in the shot clock, they're already so potent, but it makes them even more talented. And Ian McKay gives them that opportunity, and he really did so in the finals.
Your turn to propose someone.
For me, I'm going to go with a little bit of a curveball and I guess go away from our 2 NLL finals teams.
Okay.
Now, I wouldn't say that they were up to the standard that we maybe saw during the regular season, but there were many times, especially in game 2 of the semifinals and during the quarterfinals, that Mitch DeSnew was really fantastic. Now, game 1, I think that maybe all of Toronto was a little bit off, or maybe Buffalo was just that on. I don't know where you want to put the blame there, but there was a period there where Nick Rose and Brad Cree and Mitch DeSnew and the rest of the defense were shutting Buffalo off the scoreboard for a while. And, I think that it's really fair to say that Mitch is one of those leaders on the back end there, and definitely making sure that the guys that are trying to get shots on Rose aren't going to get the shots that they want. So I would put him on the board just because I love his leadership. I love what he can do, how he can help dictate an offense to do something that they don't want to do. So I would go with Mitch DeSnew.
He was actually my non-finals guy that I was going to push. So I keep hoping we're going to disagree about something. I think it'll be more interesting. And maybe we should have rehearsed this before, but I like the spontaneity. I am going to propose, I think, that's 4 guys. We can propose 2 or 3 more, I think, and then just have a debate and kind of narrow down and nail the 5 guys. I'm going to put one other Bandit out there who, or maybe I should go actually, wait, we're staking. It's your turn again.
Oh, okay. So my turn.
Yeah.
Let's see. You know, if we're gonna throw someone out there, and maybe it might be a little bit, this might be the first time that we kind of disagree. I would put in Nick Chakowski as well. Now, obviously, that Albany defense has been great, and we talked about Wagner, we talked about Kozchuk and these guys, but Chikowski as well is kind of that third strong, really good guy on that defensive side of the ball. And he, in front of Doug Jamieson, I thought was great during the finals in particular. I know that Buffalo got away, in the fourth quarter of game one, but other than that, I thought that whole trio in defense in front of Doug Jamieson was great. Buffalo was attacking a lot. So I would throw him out there just because I've loved what he's done all season. Again, a fearless guy, not afraid to scrap it up. He was great.
I'm a huge Jakowski fan. We are going to discuss this one as we try and narrow it down to five, because I've got at least one more guy I want to nominate, which means somebody has to get bumped.
Yep.
I had Jakowski in my top 5 defenders in the league this season.
Wow.
I think he was fantastic, and I think he's completely overlooked. I think one factor is the cause turnover numbers can vary pretty greatly from building to building, from official score to official score, because it's such a subjective thing. And I know the league goes and checks goals and assists and all the things that they can check, objectively, but you see some variations. I mean, did Ryan Gilks have like 10 or 12 more cause turnovers than anybody else in the league? Maybe, but
Right.
I think other people probably had more than showed up. And Tchaikovsky is one guy who's, around 15 for the season or so. And I know he had more than that. You'd watch games and he's just turning the ball over, but there's so much more he brings as well.
Right.
So I'm with you on Tchaikovsky in principle. We'll see if he can fit into the 5. I'm gonna throw another one in who and these are, they always say you need your best players to be your best players in big games. And Steve Priolo was one of the best players as usual. He's another guy that I think is still a top defender in the league. It's kind of wild that he's never won the Defensive Player of the Year award. I think I did do a breakdown on it. I know I did one on Nick Rose not winning the Goalie of the Year before this year. And I don't think Priolo ever should have won Defensive Player of the Year, because I think every year there was like one guy who was probably a little bit better, but he has been top 3 or so in the league probably 8 times. He is a remarkable player and leader, and I'm putting him in the mix.
Yeah, and first of all, I would say that you want your leaders to step up in big moments, and he does it in the playoffs as well. If you look at the Bandits' last 3 playoff appearances, he's leading in most of those categories, and his leadership is unmatched. You can hear the way that he talks in post-game press conferences about this is a team effort. Here's how we're communicating. Here's how we're doing things. He's a really phenomenal leader, great guy. Great hat game, I noticed. Had an amazing, almost it wasn't a top hat. I'm not a hat guy myself, but it had a beautiful feather out the side. Fashionable hat man as well. So big fan of him. He's a really good guy this league. But the difference, I think, with him is that he really just has a way to connect with his players. And I know it was mentioned, I think, that he's the first one to raise the cup the last 2 years, but he doesn't want to be holding that cup. He wants to see his teammates holding that cup. That's what means so much to him. So if you combine his leadership skills plus what he does on the floor, he's unbelievable.
You want to hear a quick fun Steve Perillo story?
I love it. Yeah, let's go.
I did a story for Inside Lacrosse magazine several years ago called Steve Priolo, the most interesting man in lacrosse. And I wrote about how he and his girlfriend and fiance, that now wife, Jackie, went on their honeymoon. They went to Newfoundland, and they went on a cruise, and there was an iceberg, and they went out on their stand-up paddleboards and got this amazing picture of them by those. He met Steve Aoki in North Dakota or Montana. He and his buddy were Zach Reed were driving across the country, and Pre was like, I think that's Steve Aoki. I didn't even know who Steve Aoki was when I talked to him about this. And Zach's like, no, that's, why would he be out in the field with a bunch of buffalo in the Dakotas? And Pre's like, no, I think it is. So they pull over, they go talk to him, and it was. And he was filming some commercial or something and whatever. So many interesting things. But the one that really sticks with me is he's a big dude, right? He's about 6'5", like 30, really solid. And but he's a great all-around athlete, great rock climber. And he told me years ago that when he's done playing lacrosse, his goal is to get down to about 180 pounds and become a really competitive rock climber. He wants to just scale the sides of mountains. He and Jackie, he's got incredible strength to weight ratio, and he's such a fascinating guy.
Yeah, very balanced. Now, a couple notes on that. First of all, fun fact about Steve Aoki. Did you know that his father started the Benihana chain of restaurants?
I didn't even know who he was, so no, I didn't.
Okay. So yeah, that's Steve Aoki's dad. What?
He's a DJ, isn't he? Or
He is a DJ, very popular, one of the most popular in the world now. But yeah, his dad started the
not
Benihana
very
chain.
hip.
And but a second follow-up question.
Yeah.
When they were going over to the east coast of Canada, did they take their camper van?
Yes, I think they did. So I believe they did, because they went out, and now I'm trying to think when they went to Newfoundland. I think they did. I believe they did. They had the wedding on an island where Jackie used to be a camp counselor, and they had like canoes full of ice and drinks all around. It was a very, very pre-wedding. And they did some really amazingly cool stuff. They're one of the funnest couples you would get to hang around with in this sport.
I would not be surprised.
None of which has a whole lot to do with this all-star team we're picking. But I always, whenever I talk to Steve Friol, I'm like, wow, there's more to this guy. We've got 6 names.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to add anybody else for the D?
Do I want to add anyone else? You know what? Just for the sake of, maybe having to have more discussion about throwing people out, we gave a lot of credit to John Wagner. And so I feel like it's only right when we talk about midseason pickups and guys who really sacrificed everything and great leadership, go with Paul Dawson. I mean, he was unbelievable. And everyone, I remember with Ian McKay, was talking about how valuable bringing in Paul, and he mentioned Connor Farrell as well, but how valuable it was to bring in Paul to this team and the things that he did to help this team come together. The numbers were there, and it's so amazing, the difference of seasons that Paul Dawson had in terms of where his teams finished, but really stepped up when he needed to. I know for Paul, I guess this isn't really about the voting, but for him, to go from Rochester to Colorado and now here, it's definitely been a journey over the last 2 years for him, and maybe not the way that he would have liked it to be, but now he's in a really good place, and showed that he deserves to be in Buffalo and really stepped up.
Yeah, I think he's definitely belongs in the conversation. Again, the leadership was huge, and the calming presence, which is kind of funny because he's one of the least calm players on the lacrosse floor that you see in general, right? I mean, he's a guy who gets fired up and is going to go out and stand up for his teammates and that, but he also does have a knack. And I mean, yeah, I think that would do it for me pretty much. I mean, I'd love to put Nick Weiss in there. He's a big Nick Weiss fan. I mentioned, Mike Byrne. I just think there are so many players, and I mean, we haven't even talked about anybody from San Diego. I think anyone from the quarterfinals that lost, that played one game, we can't consider, right? Obviously, they're out. But I was trying to think, like, would one of the defenders from San Diego be in the conversation? I don't know. I'm a big Cam Holding guy. And I thought he was
Cam Holding guy. We talk again about leadership and his presence on the floor, so disciplined too. Really plays a good game. And I would also say his numbers don't, it's kind of like a Jakowski thing. The numbers don't really show just how valuable he is to his team. But I would agree though on the premise that if they're out in the quarterfinals and even some of the semifinal teams, it's tough to squeak in.
Yeah. The other guy in San Diego I'm a huge fan is Eli Gobrecht, but I didn't think his playoffs were as good as his regular season. I thought he made maybe a couple of decisions that he might want back. But I just thought he was fantastic all season long, and maybe the best American defender in the game right now.
Oh, I would totally agree. The fact that, he's been successful in the PLL and the NLL, it's we don't talk enough about those guys who do so well in both leagues, especially from the NLL perspective, I would say. So, I would agree with you on that. I really want to see a guy like Drew Belgrave kind of be that like star player one day. I mean, I know I'm not actually sure how old he is, but I feel like he's in his late 20s, early 20, mid
Late,
20s.
late,
Yeah.
mid-20s.
So I would love to see him blossom into something, really great for that San Diego defense. But he's been around that team and been great too. But yeah, I think that they've got a lot of young talent that has potential to grow there.
So we've got 7 guys.
Mhm.
We're going to narrow it to 5. We've got Wagner, Kastchuk, McKay, Desnu, Tchaikovsky, Priolo, and Dawson. Wagner and Kastchuk, we both basically agreed should be there, right?
Yeah.
We're in. McKay, you sounded pretty on board.
Oh, I think so.
I love this new pick.
Yeah.
I'd like to have one person from not in the finals and I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah.
That puts us in the awkward position of having Tchaikovsky, Priolo, and Dawson with one spot available, and none of them should be eliminated. So what do we do?
If it was my vote out of those 3,
Yeah.
I would say Priolo just because you have to think about the intangibles. One thing that I thought was really telling, and maybe Paul gets a little bit of credit of this too, maybe the whole team does, but the fact that Albany was so scrappy and so physical, I have to say I love the way that Nathan Brennan plays lacrosse. He is such a pest out there, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. He will stir things up, but there were so many moments where fights could have broken out. The Bandits really could have gotten out of hand, and there was so much control of their temper. I saw a bunch of guys pulling their guys away. They're like, no, don't get this penalty. Don't do that. That I would say generally comes from the top down. And so, I give it to the captain for that.
That to me was a real key in the series because Buffalo gets penalized among the most of any team, and usually deservedly so. I know they like to say, oh, why are we getting all these penalties? Because you do a lot of things you should get penalties for. I mean, it's
Yeah.
realistically, they do a lot of things. They're a tough team. They play the game a certain way. I thought their discipline in the finals was kind of remarkable. And you could tell it was coming from the top down, whether you think of that as John Tavares or Steve Priolo, wherever. But I thought, yeah, there was a lot of discipline shown by the Bandits, and that made a big difference because the way Albany's fire play was clicking in the playoffs, that would have been big trouble.
And I would also add to that, when that first quarter of game 2 in Bandit Land, there were a lot of calls I could at least say from the fan side of things, watching from the press box, where I was worried for the refs. I was like, man, they are not happy with some of these calls, and some of the Bandits guys weren't either. But as a player, you can kind of let that get to you. You can be like, man, they're against me. I'm just really getting pissed, and that didn't happen. In fact, they gained more composure as the game went on. So again, great leadership.
Yeah. Should we pick a goalie next?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Do you want to suggest who? To me, it seems fairly clear.
Yeah, so I would say I would be shocked if you didn't have Matt Vince on your list. I mean, you can't give it to if you don't give the guy who won the championship and who had one of the best, I think the best save percentage in the playoffs on there. He was unbelievable. I really don't know how he does it. I mean, I know he's super fit. He stays in shape, very healthy. But it was the athleticism, some of the saves he was making, sliding over, making these really athletic plays. Like, it doesn't matter if you're like a supreme athlete. If you've been playing as long as he has and you're in your early 40s, like the consistent amount of acrobatic saves was really phenomenal. And I would say that the only thing against him, which I just noticed throughout the finals, was that he was letting in a lot of those low shots in, especially the bouncers.
Yeah.
But everything else, he was really just phenomenal and on point.
Yeah. And I've definitely got Vince. I do think that Doug Jameson had some really good stretches. I also think he had a couple of bad games, really. He would say, like after the game 1 against San Diego, he said that when they asked him, what do you guys need to do in game 2? He said, I have to be better. And it was true. He didn't play a great game, but he saves at key times. But I wouldn't have this guy here. And I think Nick Rose was really good. I know people were riding him. And I'm like, he gave up 8 goals in game 1. Yeah. And then they pulled him for, to have Hutchcraft running not Hutchcraft, Holochuk running and stuff. And, and just to try and change things up when Buffalo got flying. But Nick Rose had a really good save percentage. He was second in save percentage in the playoffs, I believe. He was really good again. Like I don't. There's this anti-Nick Rose thing. I think because the Rock have done so well in the regular season, and then they look and say, oh, they fell apart. They lost to Buffalo in the playoffs. Well, Buffalo played great. Nick Rose was really good. It was more on the out in Toronto.
Yeah, I would agree. And I remember tweeting this out. If you look at some of the guys, especially in game one and even in game two, key players that just weren't able to find the back of the net and shooting percentages were so low. It was, I think it definitely made a difference. Now, I think what gets some people to be maybe, like you said, anti-Nick Rose, I think it's more about the fact that his defense in front of him, when they're playing like up to their potential, they're so good. And so if the amount of goals is high and you've got a great defense, well, I feel like he gets a little bit more blame than maybe other goaltenders. Like I would, even though everything that we said about that Albany defense, I think it's very fair to say that if you pitted those two defenses against each other, that most people would go with the Toronto Rock as a better defense. And I think that that's kind of where Rose gets a little flack.
Yeah, and which, I mean, fair enough. He does have a great defense in front of him, with Desnew and Cree and Josh Jubinville, so underrated. Chris Corbeil, who wasn't good at the start of the season. He was still recovering, coming back from missing a lot of time with injury, but looked like his old self late in the season. I thought he was playing really well.
Justin Martin as well.
So good.
Yeah.
And defensively too. Like you think of him as the transition guy, but he's not a big, like, bruising defender, but he makes really smart plays defensively. Right. I mean, there's a bunch of guys there. It's I think Billy Hostrauser, who came into the league as a tough guy and just by force of will turned himself into a really good defender.
Right. So, although I think to the disappointment of the fans, everyone now is always waiting for him to fight, and he's just not fighting as much.
I know. I don't mind a good scrap now and then, but I think it's okay that he just plays lacrosse.
Right.
Yeah. Let's get to the offense.
Yep.
I think we'll just start out by saying Dane Smith and Josh Byrne are on this team.
Yes, I think that if we didn't have them on this list, that we should be fired immediately from anything we do.
I don't think we need any discussion about that. They were obviously fantastic. I don't think far off of that is Alex Simmons.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I love Simmons' tenacity. I love his ability to attack the net. I think that one of the things that's so underrated about that Albany offense, and this kind of goes for, whether it's Ethan Walker or Ty Kurtz, and maybe we'll get to those guys as well, but it's their ability to shoot from the outside as well as attack the net. And they're so good with their feet. You look at and also the poise. I think it was, the first goal of game one of the finals, where you had a couple of guys who were stepping around the crease. It was challenged, but they had both established themselves outside of the crease and were able to, I'm forgetting who was that scored. I think it was Ethan Walker that scored that goal. I could be wrong, but
I just banged my
the fact that there were guys around the crease and they knew to get out and they knew the moment in the beginning of this big series. I thought that was huge. So yeah, Alex Simmons, phenomenal rookie season. I'd also tweeted out that he set the rookie record for points in a playoffs with 32, second most points ever in the regular season with 96. He is not afraid of the moment. Great player. He's going to continue to get better, which is kind of scary to think about.
Yeah, I mean, he had a fantastic year. Well-deserved NLL Rookie of the Year. It was a Ty Kurtz goal, the first goal of that game.
There we go, yeah.
The one thing I will question about it was, did they all actually reestablish outside? I know it was announced that they did. They watched the replay. I watched that replay and thought, oh, that's coming back. One of them, was it Longboat that went through from the back of the crease, came through?
I think so. And then I think Simmons was the other.
Yeah. And I think Longboat went through both feet in the crease and got 1 foot out of the crease. But when the ball went in, I think his second foot hadn't come down yet. I don't think that should have been a goal, to be perfectly honest. So
I would need to go back and look at the footage more, but I would also say I am very glad to not be a referee.
Right? It's not easy. I just thought at the time, I remember thinking as the replay, like, oh, that's not going to stand. And and wondering why, because Travis Longboat is such a good player.
Yeah.
He's a smart dude. I kind of wondered why he cut through like that, to be honest, in that situation. But yeah, I don't think he did. And that's when it's funny because Bandits fans in particular do tend to think they're getting the short end of the stick. And when they let that one stand, I thought, actually might have a point here. In this case, you might have a point. But no, but yeah, I think Simmons was out of the crease. He got himself back out. So
Yeah.
we have that going for him. So that's 3 spots. So we're like locked down. So we've got 2 more and a lot of candidates.
A lot of candidates. So is it your go or mine?
I think it's yours.
Okay, so then I would throw out there, and then I'm going to throw in my non-finals pick here, and I would say I'm going to show Westberg some love. You know, he has kind of been the straw that stirs the drink, as they say, all season long for this team. He does so much more than score goals and make assists. He knows his role. He plays up to every position. The loose balls are incredible. He does a little bit of everything, and his poise and composure, again, great. Turnovers are very low. Yeah, I just love the way he plays, and he was really great during the playoffs. So I would put him in there.
Yeah, I actually I was like tossing up, Berg, Dixon. I think you can go back and forth a lot. Berg had 2 goals and 12 assists, I think, and Dixon had like 6 goals and 7 assists or something.
Something like that. I can check the numbers right now.
Yeah. I'm just going from memory, but I'm pretty sure we're somewhere around there. And the goals are great, and Dixon was phenomenal in so many ways, as he has tended to be. But Berg is just so critical to that team, and he wins me over when he runs back and plays defense. That one play when John Wagner's on the break and Berg, now admittedly had a couple of steps head start and wound up a bit behind him, but he raced back and stopped Wagner from getting a shot. And this little Wagner kind of went flying and his stick went all over the place. Which I have to admit, in that point, I was thinking, why are you trying to take that shot? You're not in a good shooting position. But I also then try to remember how fast these things happen and how excited you are as a player for these. But yeah, but I just thought Berg going back. You've got the numbers there, I can see.
Yeah, so it was 2 goals and 12 assists, so you're exactly on point. But I would also say to the point about the shots, one thing that I think is so great about Berg is that he doesn't take as many shots as a guy like him, that many people might think. He is quite disciplined on the shots that he takes most of the time. And I think that just adds more to his poise. So, 18 shots, I believe it was, or looking at the numbers, that's at least what they have there over 3 games. That's 6 a game. For a guy of his talent, that's a low number. So, yeah, I just love the way Berg plays the game, and I think he's got to be on there.
Yeah. So I'm going to put in 2 other guys from Albany that I have had a time choosing between. And that for me is Kurtz and Walker. I say we just put them both on, and when we get to our debate, we go over who we think, if you're cool with having them both in that category.
They were going to be 2 of my choices, and I have definitely a lot of love for what Ethan Walker does. I think that, not in the same capacity, but like Ethan Walker to me is kind of in a similar role to Wes Berg on that offense and the things that he does all around the floor, and his ability to get that offense going. I just love what he does.
Yeah, it's funny because so many people, when Albany traded Andrew Q and got Ethan Walker back, and I know there were other parts of the deal, but I know people were like, "Oh my God, how can you give up Andrew Q?" But I don't think they realized what they were getting in Ethan Walker. Q is great, and he's a clutch scorer. He does a lot of great things. Ethan Walker is absolutely central to that. We can get more into that because we should just see if there's anybody else we want to add. I know I've got one more guy at least that I want to have in the conversation. What about you? I'll let you go next. So if I threw the 2 Firewolves in.
On offensive guys, so those 3 that we've talked about, the trio of Albany and then the duo there. But I feel like, let me just start by saying a guy who I don't think is necessarily going to end up being on this list, but deserves a lot of credit for what he did. And we talked a little bit about him earlier, is Travis Longboat. The way that he contributed during the playoffs was really great to see him do that. And I think that, at least publicly deserves a little bit of praise for stepping up in that big moment. But I would go with Chase Fraser. I mean, that the kind of the game two for me was huge. He's always had that poise and control. He was just really really great in terms of finishing and getting everything done that needed to get done, and he did it in the biggest moment in the season. So it's hard again to not put a guy who scores the most goals for your team in the most important game on that list.
That's true. I saw, so one other guy that I want to have in here, and I saw somebody tweet or mention somewhere that they thought he was maybe the best player in the series, which I think might be a stretch, but Kyle Buchanan, phenomenal, always. I mean, he does so much wherever he is. He does a ton. And the Nepean nightmare, as Patty Gregoire was calling him, it is fantastic because he's such a little guy. He was a 6th round draft pick in actually San Jose, I think. I think it was before they came up to Vancouver. Yep. And he was never really tagged as a future star, and he's never really been considered a star, I don't think. But every team he has ever played for, everyone on it talks about how important he is to the
team. And he was one of the guys, and I know it's very difficult for guys after they win a championship to be very available to talk to the press, but Kyle was, I think, literally the first guy to be in the press room to talk to us, him and Ian McKay. And it was, it showed the leadership and, the poise and control that he had in that moment to talk to the press was indicative of everything that you were saying. And, I had pointed him out, I've been, as you know, I do some work also for the National Lacrosse League Players Association, and we've been doing stuff to promote MetaVarsity. And he was my kind of player to watch because what he does in terms of the value that you get from him as I don't know what you want to call him, a fifth option on that offense, and that maybe a 6th option with the weapons that they have. Like the ability or the amount that he does on the floor is really incredible. And he's a huge team guy. He was great, and I would definitely put him on the short list to maybe make one of those spots.
Yeah. It's interesting when you say he's the 5th option, maybe he's the 6th option. I'm not sure if he's even an option in the sense of buying stuff up. You think we got to get Kyle the ball. You get the ball to Dane, you get the ball to Josh, you get the ball to Chris Kluche sometimes. You give Fraser the ball in some chances. He's so dynamic. You give Dehoga Nanticoke some chances, right? I mean, Brandon Robinson, I don't think you're planning anything for him. He's similar to Buchanan in that he will just make things happen, or things will happen and he'll take advantage of them. But yeah, I don't know if Buchanan's even a guy that you ever have to draw anything up for. I think he just sees opportunities and gets in there and away he goes. That was my Spider-Man move. I don't know. But,
I do agree with that. And that Buffalo offense, and I'm glad you brought up Chris Cloutier, and I'm not sure maybe he deserves to be in there too, because the way that he stepped up in the finals in particular was very impressive, huge for the moment. One of the things that I think stood out for me, and maybe it makes it even more difficult to choose from the Bandits guys other than Dane and Josh, is the fact that especially in game 2 and why they won was they played so much like a team. Yeah. They had 7 different goal scorers, 5 guys with multiple, five guys with multiple goals. And it was really just a spread offense, 13 different guys with points, really just a team effort. But Cloutier was phenomenal. I don't know if we wanted to throw him on the short list, but he stepped.
I thought about Cloutier, and then I thought, well, if we put Cloutier in, Brandon Robinson did some great stuff, and Dehoga Nanticoke did some great stuff, and Marshall Palace actually plays a real glue role for, so why don't we say we've got 3 guys that we've locked in: Dane Smith, Josh Byrne, and Alex Simmons. We've got Berg, Fraser, Kurtz, and Walker for 2 spots. I think we debate those 4 guys. I think we all agree that we've got Buchanan here too. We've got 5 guys for 2 spots. There are other guys that we could consider, but I think the reality is it's going to be 2 of these guys. So let's do it. I want there to be at least one guy from the non-finalists teams.
Okay.
I thought Wes Berg was fantastic. So
Yeah.
I would
Sorry,
put him in if you
Preston's
want.
just trying to. Oh, you made it in the door. Hi, buddy.
Hey,
Just gonna make a little appearance.
there you are.
Say hi
Hello.
to Stephen. Can you say hi? No, no hi. Okay. Daddy's got to do some work. Say bye-bye.
Bye. We'll see you soon.
Well, Preston, as he has all season long, is trying to steal the show from all of us. So it
Not
had
hard.
to
It's pretty cute.
be. But yeah, I would say that when we talk about, as you said, choosing between these guys, um, for me, I would want to make the most case because I feel like he might get left off in Ethan Walker. Like I said, to me the role he plays on that offense, the moments at which he makes big plays, the fact that I know he's not a guy that has the ball in his stick as much as some of the other guys, but even if you look at his numbers, he really played into a little bit of a different role that in the finals than he did during the regular season. His shots came way down. He was making the right passes. He stayed focused. And then if you look at his assist numbers in the finals and throughout the playoffs, they were great. And they just kept getting better and better. And again, another player that keeps the turnovers really low, very, very disciplined with the ball, and I just love the way he plays the game. So I would say that as much love as we give to Kurtz and Simmons, I think it's a real question and it's a hypothetical. Is that how good would they be if they didn't have a guy like Ethan Walker playing the way he did?
Yeah, that's a great point. And wow, I mean, it's interesting because you look at it from that perspective, which is, I think, really well stated. And Simmons does do some stuff on his own. The whole thing about the Albany offense is it's all about the interplay of all five guys. Steve Priolo in the Bandits media availability before the finals was asked what makes it so challenging. And he said, you never know what they're going to do. A lot of teams you see tendencies, you see, they have a system and they do this and they do that. And if they do this, they'll probably do that. Where he said with Albany, it's just this kind of organized chaos where they're all on the same page, but you have no idea what they're going to do. And they don't seem to know what they're going to do, but then they just do it in such great harmony. It's remarkable to watch. And I think Simmons sometimes will just be like, okay, I've got to make this happen. And he'll go and do it. And he's really, I think, worked out a good balance of when to do that and when not to. Because I thought at times when they started having a bit of trouble, I thought he tried to do too much. And when he got back to just the team play, I thought it really helped. So I think Walker is critical to that as the oldest guy at 26 on the offense. So for me, I was going back and forth between Kurtz and Walker, and I was thinking Ethan Walker. I think he's fantastic. And then I thought Ty Kurtz had the most loose balls of any forward in this series, including Kyle Buchanan. And second chance and third chance opportunities are so critical. Albany didn't quite cash on as many as I'm sure they would have liked to on those multiple opportunities, but he just created so many and he just had this knack. And occasionally there's one that he just happened to pop to him, right? But for the most part, he showed such great awareness. So that has me going back and forth. I love what Buchanan did. I see what you're saying about what Fraser did. I mean, obviously he scored a ton of goals. For me, with Smith, Burns, Simmons, and we're pretty down on Berg, right? Or down with Berg, up on Berg. He's in, right? Yeah, I think it comes, I was going to say like down with putting Berg on there. I think it comes down to Kurtz or Walker for me, and it's so hard.
Yeah.
I was leaning towards Kurtz. I think you may have swayed me to Walker.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I said there may be some I may be swayable on, and that was the one where I felt like, oh, I'm so up in the air on it. And I had basically, if I was doing this on my own, I think I would have put Kurtz in as my guy.
I definitely understand that. Well, here, since we're kind of just winging this thing, let's look for a second. I'm just going to bring up the stat sheet.
Let's do it,
and let's see the summary stuff. So, I think as
an
example,
NLLstats.com like I am.
well, this actually I'm on Champion Data.
Okay.
which has
Okay.
been a phenomenal resource. But
Yeah, they're both great.
think about it in game one, during that very high offense game, first quarter, which I don't think many of us expected to start the finals. Maybe a little bit of nerves there on the defense, but Ethan Walker had, I think he contributed on 3 of the 4 points and scored twice, and he did it in times where assisted on the first goal, like we said. He was the secondary assist, but then scored when Albany was down again. And when Albany was down later, when it was 4-3, he made it 4-4. So he made it 2-2 after 2-1, 4-4 after 4-3. Assisted on the Travis Longboat goal in the second quarter when they were down 5-4 to make it 5-5. He just seems to, I think that is kind of indicative of how he makes the big plays in the big moments. And I'm not saying that Kurtz doesn't do that. I love Ty Kurtz, and I think that what I was so impressed with Kurtz, and I even think I tweeted this out as well, which was, if Kurtz had played the way he played in the second half of the season and even into the playoffs, the rookie of the year decision would have been a lot more difficult. I think that Simmons just had a stronger start, especially in terms of the numbers, and that's kind of how he was able to pull away. But there were a lot of games where Kurtz was, having more production in terms of numbers than Simmons was. But again, I think that look at the massive game for Albany to clinch that home game against the Riptide. Ethan Walker, 10 points.
Wow.
And he's not a big point guy, but the way that he was able to, again, step up when the team needed him to, those are things that just stick in my mind and make me just, I'm a big fan of Ethan Walker. And I think that you're going to see a lot more of that from those Denver guys that always come into the NLL because they're coached so well.
Right. So the thing about Walker that I was thinking that was big, besides the points, coming and the leadership role he plays now, was the critical goals. It seemed like when they really needed something, he did it. You've just run through it really well, and made the point far better than I would have. So I'm in. Yeah, you swayed me. I'm down with Ethan Walker as number four.
I love that I've swayed you, but now I also feel like we should be sending Ty Kurtz a fruit basket.
Oh my goodness. Or at least a basket of muffins or something, right?
Exactly. And I do want to say I love the way that Ty Kurtz plays the game. And again, I love his focus. I love his poise. He definitely plays way beyond his years. And I think you could say that about a lot of the Albany guys. But there's some guys who, you can see they can step up in big moments, but they seem young. Ty Kurtz doesn't seem like one of those guys.
Yeah.
And I would even say Alex Simmons doesn't either, even though maybe he's a little bit more baby-faced if he wanted to just go on appearances. But I think Ty Kurtz is going to do great things in this league.
Yeah, I think they both are. Did you think, side note to all this, did you think in game 2 of the finals that, Albany, they had the great comeback, they really pushed to come back. I thought there were times when they actually looked like the youngest team in the league in game 2 of the finals, where it had almost never looked like that before. They showed great character, they showed great poise, great resilience, but I thought there were times when it looked like those are some of the mistakes and decisions you expect from a young team that they just haven't made all year. And it wasn't, I'm not saying that's why they lost, but I thought there were a few situations that happened.
100%. And I actually had a lot of conversations with people about this, especially after game 1. One thing that really stuck out to me that was kind of indicative of how good this team is, but the things that they still need to clean up. It was, I believe, in the fourth quarter, there was a Nathan Grennan delay of game in game 1. And the ball had gone back and he didn't have to touch it, but he did. And then he even shoved it a little bit and they were on the penalty. And this was as Buffalo was starting to kind of pull away there. Those things are the kind of little mistakes that you just can't make. We talked about the discipline of Buffalo and things like that. And you saw it there. Now, in regards to that exact power play, they ended up stopping the Buffalo Bandits and not allowing a goal, which was great to see. But you just don't want to make those kinds of decisions in these big moments.
No, every time you give Buffalo a power play, it just increases the chances of that one being a goal. I remember seeing that play and thinking, oh, he got lucky. I was like, no, don't touch it. Okay, didn't really do much. It's probably, maybe it's not delay game. And then, Buffalo's arguing for it, and then you see the hand, and it's like, yeah, he did it.
Yeah.
He did it. And it's one that if it wasn't called, Buffalo would be annoyed, but most people would be like, yeah, I mean, he didn't really do anything. And he actually didn't knock it further away from the person
Right.
getting it. He actually, if
Yeah.
anything, knocked it towards them. But you still
Right.
can't do it. It's still a penalty, and it's still, yeah, not a great decision.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, I love that example.
Yeah.
Okay, so starting in net for our playoff all-star team is Matt Vince. The defense is John Wagner, Patrick Kaschuk, Ian McKay, Mitch DeSnew, and Steve Priolo. The offense, Dane Smith, Josh Byrne, Alex Simmons, Ethan Walker, and Wes Berg. And we managed to have 3 righties and 2 lefties. It just occurred to me as I'm going through, oh, it's going to look terrible if we have like 4 righties or 4 lefties. But it worked out pretty well.
Well, there you go. So it was meant to be, and I thought that I think it's a great list. It's a great team. Now we just need to get a team against them and actually put them on the floor and have them play against somebody.
Yeah, because you know what? We could pick. I mean, we could do another, like the next all-star team, the second team from this playoffs, and they give this team a fantastic run. And if we did it from open it up to the whole season and just picked our top players, wow, that would be some great lacrosse.
Have we just come up with the idea that the NLL should do a Pro Bowl and do the first team versus the second team? I don't know if you put anything on the line, and I think that most times maybe the first team wins, but would that not be interesting to do? Or maybe you just take the first team and the second team and you do a draft between those two and give the captain the
You
vote.
need more players because you can't play with 10 guys a sub.
Right.
Retired unless you did a really short game. I don't know. The thing is, the Pro Bowl in the NFL sucks. It's awful.
That's true.
Right, so we don't want that. I remember when the NLL used to do all-star games like mid-season. I talked to Chris White about it. He was a long-time Bandit and Rock and Peterborough Laker, and one of the toughest guys you'd ever see on the floor, and just a great defender. And he was a captain in Buffalo, and he made an all-star team. And he said, "What am I doing in an all-star game? I'm not allowed to play defense. Why am I even here? Just send like our 5th forward instead." But I mean, you have to. That's when it becomes more about recognizing the players who earn the spots as opposed to the game itself, right?
Right.
Because there's not a lot of D played in all-star. Nobody's throwing big hits. There's some guy. I mean, I'm sure Billy D. Smith would probably hit somebody in an all-star game.
I would believe so.
Yeah. Well, good work. Always great to get together, Adam. The 2024 Tom Borelli Award winner. I just want to congratulate you again. I was so proud of you and happy for you when that was announced. And I know you feel like you probably shouldn't have won it. I know you keep saying, oh, maybe I don't deserve it. There's all these guys, Graham Perro and Teddy and all these people. Like I could name. I know you were saying to me, and I don't know, maybe I shouldn't share this, but you did say I could probably name 10 people that should get it ahead of me. And I can't name 10 people that should get it ahead of you. I'm not sure I can name anyone that should get it. So.
I think that, and yeah, I think for writers, the difficult thing is that our job, right, is we tell the stories, but the reality is that without the help of everybody else, whether it's the players, the coaches, people who do amazing stats and information, we can't do our job. And so we're basically just the ones who put all the pieces together. And it almost feels like you're taking away from the things that they do by getting recognition for I legitimately would not have kind of the numbers and the things that I do if it weren't for Graham's site. I wouldn't have some of the great ideas and the full awesome stories that get published if it weren't for people like yourself. People who are there, editing and doing all these kinds of things. And so it does feel weird as a writer. It's not like you're a on TV personality where it's like you control pretty much. I mean, you have a producer and things like that, but you're running the show. You're the star. Writers are never the star, and so it just feels kind of weird.
Yeah.
But
it used to be a writing award.
There should be
the top writer, right?
I definitely think that there should be a separation between on camera and writer, and even the people that get overlooked so often are people that write or do work for just one team. I think that that's another benefit, is that like there's so many great team writers and people doing so much work. Tyson Geidt got it for Lacrosse Flash as a concept, but the things that he does with the Riptide, now the Ottawa Black Bears, you could even say, and it was great to see Mackie Jenner nominated for the first time ever for this award. Cody Jansen, the amount of work that those guys put in, they do so much of everything, but it's just with one team. And so where are you going to get the support from maybe all these different places that, can win you an award? So yeah, it's a weird award, but I'm completely honored. It's unbelievable. Like life-changing, really core memory unlocked for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, it's the feeling of being told that you've won the Borelli. There aren't that many people who have experienced it. It's a great feeling. I mean, it's a really cool feeling. And when I got the call the first time that I'd won the Borelli, I was just blown away. And I think I was just as happy when I saw that you'd won it as when I got the call myself. So that's how I felt about your candidacy. So
Well, now we're getting too emotional. This is
right.
that does
Go
that
parents.
means a lot. What was really cool, and just as a final note.
Yeah. Oh, you're frozen.
Tom Borelli. Oh, am I?
Yeah, you froze. You
Am I
said
back now?
the final note and you froze.
Yeah. Final note was, I was not in this league when Tom Borelli was a huge influence to so many people. And being nominated for this award, I've really gotten to know, especially this year. I wanted to know who that guy was, and talking a little bit with John Gertler about that, and I had a great conversation with Bud Bailey, who does amazing work up in Buffalo, and who Tom was as a writer, who he was as a person, and to know a little bit more about him, and how unique he was, and how just like focused on his agenda and those things. And um, I love people who are unique personalities, who do things their way a little bit, and do things in creative senses. And he seemed like he was that guy. And it's so tragic that he was taken from us in the way that he was. But because he is such an influence to so many people that are still around this game. And now knowing more about Tom, to have this award means so much more.
Yeah, I actually got a chance to speak to Neil Stevens, who is one of my heroes.
Mhm.
Was a close friend, and I was devastated with. I mean, he told me what was going on beforehand, but still, when he passed, it was just numbing. But I had a chance to talk to him about Tom Borelli and what he meant to him, to Neil, and to everyone in the NLL, and it was remarkable.
Yeah.
It's a very, I think you summed it up again very well, which is kind of your knack, I think, is to be able to boil things down. So
Yeah.
we will sign off there. Thank you so much for doing this, and we have a lot coming up. This is going to be on IL Indoor, just as a slideshow or as a story, and of course it's going to be on Blue Squatch Productions, and there's lots more coming. We have our IL Indoor Awards to announce in the coming days, which some, I can tell you, some will be the same as the NLL awards and some will be quite different, which I think is going to be really fascinating. And yeah, always great to get together. Thanks so much, Adam, for coming on.
Yeah, I would say let's do a lot more of this next season. I love it. We've got a great team thanks to you. You built a tremendous team here at IL Indoor. So excited for what the future has to come.
Perfect. Thanks so much.